Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I did kind of hope nobody would and I would just take a little nap, but here we are. I'm a visitor to this beautiful place, and I'd just like everybody to take a moment to remember Uncle Tony's beautiful, generous welcome to this country yesterday morning, which made me just so happy to be here on this beautiful land and to really think about who is the true custodian here and the privilege that we have to live amongst them. Oh, it worked. That's me. Despite what the earlier slide said, my middle name is not Draqul. It's Draqul, for sure. I'm just going to do a couple of little disclaimers. One is that I am a writer. I sit at home in my cave all day. I'm not a performer. This is supposedly a talk about comedy writing, but it will not be a stand-up routine. So also my slides are very basic, so just forgive me the quality of the presentation. Second is that I'm not representing the views of my employers or even my colleagues, like we have a lot of arguments. And three is just like I've not slept properly in 2 months, so let's see how we go. The outcome of the talk today that I would like is to make you aware of an audience and the appetite of that audience, and allow you to connect with them, speaking to them natively rather than cynically. And that will help you serve them better, connect with them better, get more engagement, win awards, make lots of money. And I assume at least one of those things is on your priority list. Very diverse range of reasons that people get into game dev, but surely one of those. What's on this one? Okay. Oh, this one's about me and my cat. I have been making my living writing full-time for almost 20 years. Thank you. Yes, I have great skin. I'm now at Mighty Kingdom, which is an independent in Adelaide. I was the second ever narrative designer on what is now a really lovely, robust team that I'm so incredibly proud of, even though all I did was just be there. Most of my career, I was in games journalism, writing about video games with some other little side hustles. And during that time, I made a tremendous amount of money for other people because my second most important professional talent is that I execute on the brief. And when the brief is make number go up, Bones delivers. I'm going to skip that bit. I'm going to skip that bit and say it later. I have to scroll down here to see my notes. Oh yeah, so now I'm an award-winning narrative designer. How about that? And I got that award in a group of nominees, which included Immortality and Oxenfree, which is wild. And I mean, is our project breaking new game artistically in such a way that it's pushing the medium forward and saying new things and speaking to people and getting papers written about it like those two games are? No, but the audience came in hot for us because we were speaking specifically to mobile gamers with what they wanted, and that's really what I'm going to talk about today. Still, I did one. All right, so how did we win this award? Stay tuned. We'll get there. The forward button is no longer forwarding. There we go. But I have said that I am an award-winning narrative designer, but it's actually me and my team. So I really just want to call out another few names while I have you here as a captive audience. So the current team on Star Trek Lower Decks Mobile, which, sorry, that's the game we won the award for. I should have said the name of the product. Available now on iOS and Android. So Fran Warner, oh, I'm so nervous, who is our team lead, who just does all the heavy lifting of things that make me cry. I also cry if he goes on holiday and I have to nap under my desk. Could not do anything without him, and he's an incredibly gifted natural writer who really pulls stories together out of apparently nowhere. Jordan LeCain, who's a very, very young game dev, who's still in that magical period of splitting their time between narrative design and game design, and has not yet yeeted purely for game design, as people usually do when the realities of this discipline start to hit in. And that's because they have it in their bones, you know. That's my name. So that means they are going to be somebody to watch for in the future. And also Crystal Penhall, who's our main cinematic designer, just an incredibly talented person who keeps pulling shit out of the engine that the program has never put there. And she and I are in an arms race constantly over who can do the weirdest stuff in there. And I don't think she's here, so I can say she is winning right now, but the results are spectacular. So thank you just for letting me give them a little bit of air, because this is an industry where people's names get swallowed. I forgot to make my joke about there being no I in narrative team, which means you can't spell. Anyway, right, know your audience. As we all know, in game dev, you have to know your audience if you want to engage with anybody. I mean, if you want to make games nobody sees, go for your life. Itch is there. You are my audience. Let's get to know you. So, who here is a full-time writer or narrative designer and does nothing else? Fran. All right, who's doing narrative design or games writing alongside game design, UX, executive, leadership, creative? All right. Now, all those people who just put their hand up, put your hand up again if you're doing a product that's like really commercial. Pure, yeah, okay, right. So you are the people I was originally planning to speak to, and then I remembered there's about 17 of us in the whole world left, and we're all fighting for each other's jobs Highlander style. I've eaten 7 white men. Who here is in none of these categories and doesn't do anything to do with narrative at all? Oh my God, you guys are the real heroes. Okay, so let's go on a little journey with me here for a minute. Is that when I conceived of this talk a couple of months ago, I was like, you know what sucks? A lot of comedy writing. Maybe I should just go and tell a bunch of strangers that they suck at it and how they can get better by just like going on Tumblr a lot. And then in the months since then, well, first I forgot that I had to do a talk for a while. But when I got back around to that, my concept of what I wanted to say to people changed. And especially in the last few days, I've had the most incredible conversations with other narrative designers here at GCAP. I mean, we started with such an excellent keynote about the value of people's voices in the rooms and trusting the audience. And as a result, my thinking about what I wanted to say has changed, and what we've got is just a real Frankenstein mix. It's very obvious to everybody that I have ADHD, and it's just going to keep going. So I think the other outcome that I want us to get from this talk, now that I've completely changed my mind about everything, is that the audience exists for more interesting and challenging writing than the conservative ideas from the money holders in the industry allow us to believe. And as a consumer and a creator of commercial games designed to make money, I believe we can all do better, basically. So just like, don't limit yourself. Let the writers you're already paying to write get weird. Right, so here's what we're going to do, actually. I'm going to talk about what's not funny and how we should all stop doing it. I'm sort of going to say what is funny, where to find it, and why it matters. I'm going to give you 5 tips. And I don't know why I bothered to put in closing remarks and question time. I think just because an indented bullet mark really annoys me. So after that, we'll knock off and go to the keynote. Hooray! Right, here's a question. Is it funny, or is it just occupying the space where funny should be? I have this feeling that like a lot of comedy that I experience is not humour. It's just the shape of humour. It's not people making jokes. It's just people repeating jokes. They're not writing engaging patter. They're just playing out a formulaic, predictable rhythm. And I don't want to like cite specific examples. It seemed really mean to get up here and be like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. But I mean, what about like jokes? Let's say the villain comes in, disrupts the scene, yeets, And then like your pro tags are there like, oh, what's going on? There's like a beat, and then one of them goes, well, that just happened. And then there's a laugh track, like usually. Is that really funny, or is it just like something you've heard 100 times before and it just feels familiar and comfortable? And I think it's okay to laugh along with that. I'm not like going to bag anybody out and be like, you're not highfalutin enough because you laughed in the movie. We are a species of chimp who get off on like community. Like, of course, if other people are laughing, we laugh, and that's great. It's so good for us. Don't stop. But I still think that there is an appetite for better writing than that. Yes. And since we're here, why not do it anyway? I still don't know what to click. There we go. Here's some screens you can't read because they're too small. They're really low res. They're low res because the original tweets these came from are gone. These are photos from behind the scenes of Workaholics, which was a 7-season sitcom on Comedy Central. 2 of them were originally shared on Twitter by John Quaintance in 2016, and the third one came from Adam Devine in 2020. But the images and the content on the boards has been collated since 2010 when the show began production. This is a list of jokes that they banned in their writer's room because they were old and stale and hack and repeated way too often. In 2010, I've seen these jokes this week in brand new productions. We make video games. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they take a really long time to make. If your stuff is stale when you start, what is it like at the other end? I don't know if you've ever been sent like a meme by like your grandma, or worse, just like your friend who's just a bit too normie and you saw it 3 weeks ago and you're just embarrassed. That's not the feeling we want to give our audience. So let's not just ban tired old jokes. Let's make a commitment to write new ones. Let's try to make combinations of words people haven't already heard. And this is a great way to punch up any kind of writing, like instead of using a stock phrase, make up something new, which is also a really good way to learn what idioms actually mean, so that when you write free rein, you don't put a G in it, because it refers to horses, not thrones. That one's free, you can have that, that's a tip. I put a meme on this, fantastic. So I think as creatives, we need to be taking in new stimulus all the time, and we need a broad range. We need a really nutritious diet of lots of different things. I'm so amazed people are taking photos of these. This is weird. There is a lot of funny stuff out there in the world, really funny stuff. We've not stopped being funny as a species just because Joss Whedonization has ruined TV, And you need to seek it out. You've got to follow like chains of creators back to the bleeding edge and see what's really going on, where things are funny. Now, I realise I'm speaking like to 2 audiences here. There's a lot of people in games who sort of already live outside the normie sphere, and you experience a lot of cool things. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to explain it to you. It's our playground. You don't need to tell me where it is. For other people, who are usually people who say no to me, you've got to break out of your cultural bubble. You're losing relevancy as the mainstream becomes the minority. You need to recognise that culture moves fast, and it has moved, since you got your promotion. There was a time when Twitter was the most relevant humour platform in the world. It was 10 years ago though, fam. Move on. This really drives me bonkers. I've written a lot here. Oh, this is what I want to say. I'm not going to give you an anthropology lecture. I'm just going to hope you'll trust me when I say that the fringes of culture always end up in the mainstream eventually. And a really good example of this is if we look at popular music and we look at how the music industry has ruthlessly exploited black culture again and again and again to give us country, to give us rock, to give us, obviously hip-hop is the most recent one, to give us jazz, all things that were went mainstream and became really big after that. And we forget their origins often. We see it happen all the time with queer culture. It's going mainstream. With migrant cultures, with marginalized religious cultures. It's happening right now with neurodivergency, actually. Like, not to brag, but people with ADHD and who are in various places on the autism spectrum and in other less well-known populations are making the funniest shit in the world in the dark corners of the internet. God bless us. So let's talk about what makes that fringe of humour so compelling. I've saved you the effort of going out and finding out. I've just written it down. It's 5 things. It's fast. I put them in a different order. It's weird. It has heart. It challenges us to put the pieces together ourselves, and it just eats culture. It uses everything it has around it. So your homework as creators is to go away and engage with weirder, edgier media and social circles so that funnier things start seeping into you and you start putting them out in your work. I mean, I say you, I don't mean you here. You all seem really cool. But in the meantime, here are like 5 tips that are gonna like help get there. Okay, number 1, just like move fast. Do not waste your audience's time. A little caveat here, like I'm not saying video games can't be slow, explorative and wordy. Just saw a really excellent talk on narrative pacing, which, you know, just go and watch that. And that's that whole caveat that I now don't have to do. But in your words, think about, like, really kill your darlings. Don't waste people's time. And this is so hard for writers because there's nothing we like more than wasting people's time with words. Why use 3 when you can use 17 and somebody might like give you a pat on the head and think you're clever? I'm not bagging this out. This is me. This is what you can hear how I speak. But you can't approach the narrative of, like, particularly a commercial mobile video game as if you were writing Pride and Prejudice, even though that is a text where every single word is well chosen. Like, you just have to, you have to prove your value to that audience fast because in the attention economy, they have so many other places to go. And, like, we have the metrics on this. We know how long people will keep an install on their game, on their phone if they're not immediately grabbed by it. And it is alarming. It is sometimes measured in seconds. So think about the opening seconds of your game. This is why your UX designer is so hot about the FTUE, and you just have to do what they say, unfortunately. We can serve our audience best by serving them value in every single word. And I really mean every single word. I'm speaking more to scripting here. It does apply to high-level narrative design, and I'll talk about it later if there's time. But the easiest way to make yourself maximize the value of every beat is to set very hard content restrictions on yourself and stick to them. For those of you who are around for old school, no thread, 140 character Twitter, you're probably already quite good at this, assuming you had a lot of followers. But so Star Trek Lower Decks Mobile, an award-winning game, has tight content restraints, and they were established by game designers and UX designers with reference to formula that were proven in market. So, you know, there's the business explanation. And we as narrative designers were like, oh, hell, you know, because these are the constraints. And okay, so we're up to 74 episodes now? 70? Thanks, Fran. We're up to 70 episodes now. Each episode is 10 cutscenes long. Cutscenes are 10 frames long, and each frame can have 1 text block of 85 characters. So to tell a complete story of an episode, to establish the stakes, to have like the escalating tension, to introduce conflict and obstacles, to resolve that, to have a feel-good moment, to fit in some character development and have jokes, 8,500 characters, 1,200 words. That's 280 character tweets. That's a lot. Now, if you're writing jokes that need like a setup and then a pause to get some tension, and then a beat for comedic timing, and then the punchline, and then a reaction. That's like 7/10 of your cutscene. You're going to get 10 jokes in your whole thing and have no room for story. So this has made us really good at writing much shorter, much snappier jokes. And if in a 10-line sequence, if you can get all the plot done in the first 2 lines, that's 8 lines for jokes, and 8 lines for making lizards kiss pigmen, a thing I did recently by putting the pigman on a crate so he could reach the lizard's lips. Most people who are attracted to writing as a career love words and language, and they have a huge toolkit of $2 multisyllabic words and of stock phrases. We can string together elegant, flowing sentences, and we can use every single piece of punctuation available to us before eventually getting to a period 2/3 of the way down the page. And I love this for us. We're great, this is wonderful. But that's not what we're looking for when we're making this product for this audience. We want brevity, economy of language, beautiful efficiency, value in every beat. Spent a long time talking about being concise, hey? Number 2, just get a bit weird. Please, just get a bit weird. We are so conservative in this industry with commercial games. I love being here and getting to meet a lot of indies and not being freaked out and exoticizing the fact that the games are interesting, you know? Because it refills my happiness meter to be working in games. You can be weird. There was a whole talk on silliness I didn't get to go to. Weirdness is funny. Jokes surprise us. This isn't a new thing I'm saying to say that a joke should have a surprise in it. Like, most comedy manuals will tell you that what makes jokes work is the shock of the unexpected coming as catharsis after the tension of the build-up, which obviously, like, we don't have time for tension in this, but the fact that we know this makes it so frustrating to me that so much of what passes for humour writing is just regurgitating shit we've already seen. I'm so sorry, I'm swearing. I'm not going to go over that again. I just want to drill down a little on what makes unexpectedness work, because surprise can't just be randomness. Pure randomness is not funny. It's just kind of like wearing and confusing. If I take like a brand new meme from the absolute fringes of ADHD Tumblr and chuck it up before you, well, maybe not you, but you know, the audience, they're not necessarily going to find it funny. It's just going to be random. We need to ground it in something familiar. They need to know the context, even if the context is a really shifting, nebulous thing that's hard to lock down. In order to throw the unexpected at your audience and have them appreciate it, you need to ground them first. You need to give them a solid baseline and then deviate from it. A deviation without an established norm is just a meaningless movement. So unexpected but not random, and my shorthand for this concept is box of teeth. So if you found a box of teeth in a cabinet, that would be quite unexpected. But if you were in a house that had previously been owned by a paleontologist, a box of dinosaur teeth in a cabinet may be a surprise, but it has context. Somebody once said no to me about putting a box of teeth in a game, and I'm still mad about it. Right, strategy 3, big heart, big payoff. This is basically just about investing really heavily in your characters. I think we're super lucky on Lower Decks in that it's a licensed product, and we were given some very big personalities to work with right off the bat. You know, saved us a lot of time having to make them up ourselves and deal with all the no's. But we don't just stop with what the show handed us. For one thing, the sheer volume of content we produce means that we actually have more room to explore their dynamics than the show itself does. I just realised I can lift this up and stop like hunching. Incredible. By getting, like, really knowing our characters and really developing our characters means that passes on to the audience. I'm just going to have to read what I wrote here, I think. I'm sorry. By revisiting and exploring and re-exploring how our characters interact with each other and knowing them really well, we create a space that the audience finds predictable and home-like, the base that we're going to diverge on that I was talking about previously. Staying very true to characters builds heart. And then having that heart pays off in that you can then just put them in a jar and shake them up with something and see what falls out by itself. And that is going to be funny. It's when you take the familiar and put it against new things that we find comedy. And it also, you hear authors say, like, the characters come to life and write themselves. And like, what does that mean? It means just that you know the character so well that you default to their voice. You don't have to think, what would Mariner do in this situation? Because your brain is already doing what Mariner would do for you. And like, this is obviously working smarter instead of harder. So write all your dialogue, just having chats with your colleagues. The only way to pull this off, though, is to, and to make sure that your audience can get really invested in your characters, is you have to get really invested yourself. And there's a couple of ways you can make sure your team are just like fully marinated in the product and can instantly like tell you everything about your characters and differentiate between them meaningfully. Documentation, obviously, everybody loves documentation, but like, do table reads. If you're the only narrative designer, get the rest of your team in and make them play roles. Have watch parties. If you're not working on a licensed product, watch your own stuff back together. Like, that should just be a fundamental game development thing. Keep your scope manageable so you can actually know who all your characters and settings and events are, and you're not in like a World of Warcraft situation where the audience knows what's going on better than you. Very embarrassing. And like, if you're a stakeholder, producer, something like that, like, actually give your team time to get invested in the product before they need to produce stuff. If you can do that, it's going to show in the product as real heart and good jokes. And if you can't do that, it's also going to show in the end product. And that, yeah, very embarrassing. Strategy 4, give them 2 + 2, not 4. And I've put a little quote up there that you can read if you want to. I hate exposition. If a film starts with a narrator or a crawl, I immediately tune out. I am not as stupid as I often sound. Like, I can put pieces together, and so can our audience. We don't give enough credit to our audience for being able to follow a story and put things together. And like, just start in medias res and expect the audience to keep up. You can't end every scene explaining what's going to happen in the next one and then signpost the next scene by explaining how you got there and what's about to happen. There's just no room for it, and it's just very boring. I'm sure we've all experienced media. We see this particularly in quite a lot of games where something happens and every character in the cast reacts to it by saying, not the whatever, over and over again. And it's just not interesting. It's a real hit that button and maybe yeet and uninstall. You should be confident asking your audience not just to follow your trail, but to think ahead and imagine for themselves what's going to happen. And in the gaps that you leave, where you don't just come out and say everything, the audience is going to fill it in on their own, and they're going to have such a great time doing it and imagining what's happening when your game's camera isn't there. When your audience is curious, they're talking about your work, they're asking questions, they're swapping their little theories, they're writing extremely spicy fanfic, and they're looking forward to having their curiosity sated and their investment rewarded in the next episode. And that makes your job so much easier. The world of your work in their minds is 60% what you put out there and 40% what they just made up. And that's 40% of the work you didn't have to do. Producers love it. And the audience, I'm so sorry, but the audience is significantly more invested in the work they do than the work you did. Oh, here's when you want to leave gaps in your work, as a writer, you want to do that because you're great. and you're doing a review of your work you've done with stakeholders in the room. It's the job of the stakeholder to push back and say, we need to signpost this for people who are not going to understand it. And that is a really admirable job, and they must do it. And your job is to know your material and your audience well enough to push back in the right places and meet in the middle to find a compromise between the two extremes. So your audience is rewarded for their mental investment, the investment of their time and attention, and hopefully also their money, and remaining accessible to the greatest number of people. And I'm not the first speaker this week to say, and we just worked that out based on vibes. But I'll give you some ammunition for these battles. I'll point you to a couple of things that have really big mainstream appeal that do not signpost every single emotional moment. So let's talk about The Sopranos. Pretty good show. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. I'm not seeing like any delight and joy in your faces. Do you not enjoy these shows? What about The Bear? I love The Bear. But these are not shows where like a character's on screen saying, this is exactly what I'm feeling at the moment and this is why. And the next person is like, oh, I hear that you're feeling exactly this and I understand why. Now let's explain exactly what we're going to do next. The camera just shows us a picture of their face and you do 40% of the work. Yeah, we should just all write The Bear. That's my takeaway there. Did I write a curious audience as a thirsty audience? Our audience is hell thirsty, my God. Lean into your tools. What was I saying here? Oh my God, that's right. Yeah, this is the eat everything. Everything can give you ideas for narrative. And when you're working in games, you've got this really excellent source of inspiration, which is you're going to show everything visually in a really cool way. And if you know exactly like how your engine works and I really wrote this forgetting that so many of you are going to be like solo devs and small teams who do everything yourself. But imagine for a minute you've been hired as a games writer and you don't know how to do stuff in Unity and you don't know how the cutscenes are made. Like, put yourself in that position. And now imagine somebody showed you and you're like, oh wow, I can do so many things with this that I wasn't aware of, and now my scripts aren't going to suck. Honestly, just general good advice for all writers in games is to at least theoretically be across every aspect of how the game comes together. It's going to make your work so much stronger, but it specifically makes you a better comedy writer for video games because it gives you opportunities to find humour in the tools themselves. Not too long ago, I have no sense of time, that could be a big lie, we realised there was like a rotate tool for sprites in the engine. And yeah, you can do all sorts of things with that. You can stick legs out of haystacks. That wasn't possible before. Suddenly there's a whole bunch of comedic jokes about me killing people and putting them in haystacks or whatever. So, oh, here's an example that I actually wrote down instead of having to make one up. Thanks, Bones. We wanted to do an underwater episode, and did we have the art budget for that? No. But what we did have was like a rocky moon set and a blue filter and some bubbles. Wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't also make the cutscenes and know how to do it. I did write put a bush on it, didn't I? Yes, I did. Does everybody know about the Fallout train hat? Yeah, and like World of Warcraft's rabbits and stuff. My shorthand for that is put a bush on it, which is where you find a solution in engine that allows you to do something cool narratively or just solves a problem like a hole in your sprites. You can't put a bush on it if you don't know what you're doing. Please learn your tools. That could be better, could be worse. Don't know. I cannot click the thing. There we go. Oh, we're at the summary. All right. Here we go. I'm just going to read this to you. Lots of humour writing is regurgitation masquerading as jokes. Let's ask better of ourselves and the things we produce and the things we consume. Fringe humour, it's better. Go out there, read some very funny things by people on Discord. 5 strategies, take your photos, you can have it, you're allowed to leave now, I've given you the... yeah, does anybody need more time? Yeah, a few more cameras. Okay, we have got a few more minutes. I would like you all to ask like interested, intelligent questions that I'm capable of answering. If that doesn't happen, I prepared for that embarrassing situation. I have some other secret slides later on with some rants on other subjects. And if nobody's interested in those, I'm just going to name drop all my favourite colleagues in narrative. Or we can just go to the pub. Are there questions? Oh God, there's questions, okay. I mean, the pub's still on the table, guys.
So I love lower decks and like Star Trek, especially like Tendi and like Rutherford and all of that. So like when you got the IP, like how did you like stick to the established lore, I guess? Because Star Trek has a lot of lore and a lot of random lore that just like, yeah, you basically have to scroll through fandom pages to even understand it. Like, so like what's your thought process on like basically your workflow process and even like getting to that and integrating like random bits of like Star Trek lore into your games, essentially?
Good question. One thing we do is scroll through endless fandom pages. Memory alpha, thank you. We have a mix on our team of people who were like, had never seen Star Trek before, to people like me who are like die-hard Garrick Bashir shippers. It's canon. It's canon. Oh, as soon as they give him to me an engine, it's going to be fucking canon. So yeah, I mean, we do a lot of fact-checking with Memory Alpha. We have client approval processes where we have like a guru at Paramount who's like a godsend to us. He knows everything and checks everything over for us. A lot of it is finding the opportunity in that sort of thing. Like we watch, like it helps that the conceit of our game is that they're revisiting past adventures of Star Trek because they're little Badgie, the yellow guy, who is their sadistic torture machine, is not super creative and just recycles old plots, a little bit meta there, wink. Like finding those random things that are just so weird and wild and stick out in people's memories about Star Trek and like building on that is really easy, does a lot of the work for us. It's really fun for us, and it's what the fans want. Like the things that we find to love and celebrate and question, or even to critique sometimes in Star Trek, are the same things that the audience are interested in. So how do we handle the lore weight of it? Sometimes we make mistakes. Mostly we just try really hard not to, and our love for the product shines through, I think, which goes a long way.
I'll be nice. Oh, thank you. In terms of dealing with other colleagues and working together on writing, how do you discuss what level a particular line or joke is at, and then know when something is punched up enough?
I think we have really good narrative processes at MK. Name dropping Melissa Coven, who helped us develop them. We have a really good review culture. There's a lot of love in the room, and we are all very single-minded on our task. It's very rare for one of us to say to the other, I don't think this is good enough. What usually happens is one of us during review will flag in advance and say, I don't think this line is quite there, can we punch it up? So unfortunately, I think the answer to that question is many years of building relationships with your team and building trust. But we have a modular narrative process, which I would love to talk about, which I think is in 5 steps. And at every step, we have an internal review. And doing it all the time really quickly takes the sting out of it. Like, we only grow as writers when we accept critique and we collaborate. And particularly at the script level, when you're when somebody else is looking over your work with you, that's opportunities for better jokes to occur, because a scene that you wrote 2 jokes in is going to end up with 4 because you've got 2 minds meeting in one place. Is that close to an answer? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh, I'm right here.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my God. Yes, of course you are.
Yes. So with fringe humour, I've seen that there is a potential risk of, if you pick things that are too modern or too topical, that they can actually date faster than things that are more well established. So when you're looking at the fringe humour, the up and coming stuff, how do you gauge if you think it's going to have the longevity to still be funny by the time it comes out?
I think the key word there is topical. I don't think topical is just avoid it. Just avoid it if it's about a current event or whatever. Like the bleeding edge of humour is not necessarily like jokes about what's happening in American politics. If it were, SNL would be funny, you know. The bleeding edge of humour is eating everything for 100 years and then making a joke about like Marcus Aurelius that 17 other people get because they're also deep into like Latin posting, you know? And then bringing that ethos back to work that's more accessible. Vibes-based. You just go on vibes. It's vibes. We got other... Oh. 7 minutes.
Hi, sorry to hold you hostage a little longer. Sort of building off of the top of that last question, because you talked about how you delve deeper into fringe humours and Tumblr and TikTok and everyone, there's a lot of absurdist everything. How do you sort of find the line of avoiding what I think is most relevantly talked to as cringe? Like, that is that fine line of something being funny and then no longer. Or do you just lean into it?
Oh yeah, on the bleeding edge, we're in the post-cringe culture now. We've embraced cringe. Cringe no longer exists. You can just put on your tiger Band-Aid.
Thank God.
Did anybody get the tiger Band-Aid cringe joke? Oh, I see. That's because I'm right on the bleeding edge. One more at the back. Maybe 2 more at the back. We'll see how efficient I am.
Hi, I've loved your talk. I've really jived with your energy and experiences. I wanted to ask, so you're working on a small team of developers and they're on the more conservative side. How do you convince them to accept narrative potential, especially in mobile games? Because I find that there's such a pushback on the idea of valuing narrative and valuing jokes and comedy in the games that you're writing. And I've never really been able to, bring the inspiration there to focus on narrative more to my team.
This is an immature medium, and we are a young discipline within an immature medium. It's hard. We're in a rough place. This has been part of every conversation I've had with another narrative designer this week. It really sucks. What's worked for me personally is just kind of obnoxious. I'm loud, I lean into things, I perform arrogance a lot. I simply browbeat Fran into accepting that I'm correct quite a lot of the time. I've had it's been a real learning curve for me coming into, I wanted to talk about, this is good, thank you. So I came into development from media, and as a games journalist, I thought I knew a lot about development. It turned out I was completely wrong. There was really, really steep learning curve. But on the other hand, coming into development, I have found this real culture of, especially in the high commercial spaces, and I've heard this from a lot of developers across AAA as well, just a culture of conservatism. And it makes sense because there's a lot of money on the line with the video games, right? They cost so much to make, and we all want to be able to pay our staff and not do layoffs. So, sorry, I'm really circling the ADHD drain right now. What was your question? just be obnoxious. Yeah, just keep pushing. Please, just keep trying. Please, people, keep having these conversations where you're like, look, I don't necessarily need to make the weirdest game in the world, but come on, man, it's just a box of teeth. And there's so much data about how diverse voices and diverse topics in our games makes them better, makes them stronger, opens them up to more people. Maddie's got some great data about the market for her game. Who was it? Rebecca Kerr's got some great stuff about the data is there. We just have to get it together and put it in front of our stakeholders and our bosses, and just keep fighting the good fight, and just keep looking at other people's indie games and be like, that's cool that it's happening somewhere, and in the meantime, I've got a steady paycheck, so it's a bit, yeah. It's 3 minutes. Has anybody got a 3-minute question? Huh? Oh, it's you. Oh, it's you three.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
I don't know if this might be relevant more to people who aren't just doing narrative like yourself. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, we're part of that sphere of we do all the things and also some narrative. Mm-hmm. Did you ever find a solution as a team or as an individual to cog changing? Like, as in moving from, say, I need to write a really comedy scene now, and now I'm going to go write something really depressing on a different IP in a different room. Does that still happen to you, or have you just found a workflow where you've eliminated that need so that the writers can really get deep into a space and then do their thing?
I don't think I'm the right person to answer this question. I don't know, for example, what Fran's answer would be. My answer is, I have ADHD. I've never stayed in the same cog for 6 seconds altogether.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Sorry.
No, all good.
I think that's pretty much it, unless somebody's got a real quick one. Oh my God, let's go to the pub. Thank you so much.